guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly Q&A video. This is season 8, episode 36. I almost said season 6, episode 38. I don't know. Anyways, we don't mention this all the time, but links in the description if you're on YouTube right now if you want to access this on most of the major podcasting platforms. I almost said all, but I don't actually know what all the major podcasting platforms are.
I have no idea. I think I listen to fewer podcasts than you do.
See, I know that the big ones are Apple Podcast, Spotify.
Spotify's huge now.
I don't think Google Podcasts is that big. And then a lot of people listen on Stitcher, and I think those are the main ones. And we're on those and more, so I don't know. But anyways, we don't make any money from those though. So in terms of ad revenue, so if you like it better.
Is it like YouTube where if you don't hit a threshold and there's no, you're then really just doing it for fun and not any kind of potential earnings?
Yeah, so I think podcast monetization is interesting because podcast listeners are considered more engaged, I think, than the average viewer. Okay. So I think you get more money per view. They're a more valuable view in the same way that like a TV spot, right, is worth different stuff than like YouTube or like online ads per view.
Okay.
And they're interesting, right? Because if you're part of like a network, I think they can set you up with ads, and that's one of the things. So like iHeartRadio, for example, automatically serves ads to all of their podcasts under it.
Okay.
Same, well, not exactly same. I don't know exactly what Maximum Fun does, which is the McElroy's platform. I know that they do the sort of cross promo of stuff.
Right.
But I don't know if for the sponsor segments, if Max Fun helps set those up, or if, you know, they have to manage it themselves. I don't actually know what the inner workings of it are. And I know we're on Anchor, and I think we haven't checked in a while, and we're not like big enough to care about it. Right. But Anchor also has something that can automatically serve you with ad opportunities, where you can record yourself fulfilling the ad spot and then get money sort of automatically, but we've never actually used that service before.
Right.
Where you can set bumpers and it'll automatically, like, they can have it so that for like a month, anybody who downloads any of your podcasts will be served with that bumper in it, where it automatically like edits the podcast for you essentially at a time that you put in. Right. So, you know, interesting. I don't know. I don't actually know. And podcasts are interesting in that way. I didn't realize, because I know that people do that, but it's really weird to me, the idea of podcasts as more of a living document, because when you upload a YouTube video, I'm not used to being able to like edit a clip into the middle of the YouTube video later. Right? Splice it in and then just sort of update it. And it feels almost wrong to me that you can upload a podcast and then at a later date you can change a chunk in the middle of the podcast and it's different. And I know that it's used for ads, but like if the functionality exists, you could, you know, go through your backlog. And if you like, for example, the first thing that comes to mind, because we have a bunch of moths around right now.
Oh, and God.
I don't want to say what they are. So I have trouble referring to them because technically what they're called, has a slur in them.
Oh, right.
Right?
Okay,
so I feel weird referring to them the way that they're actually called. And there's no good solution because, it's a slur for the Romani people.
And moths, that's
in and moths. And that'll be easy to look up. And it's one of those slurs that has been derogatory for, you know, forever because it's a slur.
Right.
But in terms of public conception of it, it hasn't really been...
It's been pretty mainstream.
It's been pretty mainstream, and it hasn't been... There hasn't been a lot of pushback against it for a while. And, you know, I'm sure that people have been talking about it being bad for years now, right? And because I've heard it in the conversation, but it hasn't hit that sort of same mainstream public conscious awareness as I think a lot of other slurs have.
Right.
So it's interesting. But so my example, as I was imagining, if you had a podcast where you said that slur, you could theoretically go back and like edit it out, but I don't actually know.
Right.
And the interesting thing is that when you like edit a video or something, right? If you make a mistake in a YouTube video and you edit it and you put up a new one, sort of the understanding is that it's treated as like a separate thing, right?
Right.
It's a new video. It's at the top of your feed. It wasn't posted like a year ago. If you go back and edit it, it's posted now.
Right.
Right. And you lose all the views and you lose all the comments. And so it's interesting because I think podcasts, I mean, one thing is they don't have comments the same way, but that you can edit something, you can make it a different product and put it back up, and it can be under that same episode banner. It can be under this, it can be at the same place in the feed. It doesn't get bumped up to the top. And so you can sort of stealth change stuff without it coming up the same way. And I think that's interesting.
All right. So it's like, the idea, all right, that our body refreshes itself after a certain amount of time. So as the shell of the body, is it still us?
Yeah.
But the atoms that we're composed of that make us up are not the same ones that we were, say, like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's different like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but you know what's interesting? Because as you say that, I feel like I want to just check it out because there is an edit function.
To change the music, right?
Is it only the music? Because you can edit the video to give you effects after it's already been uploaded.
After it's been uploaded. But I feel like because that's within YouTube, it's like kind of terrible.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I know what you mean.
It's not like... It's like if like putting like a Snapchat filter on top of something and saying it's like a new video. Like if everything's like sepia tone, right? Like it doesn't really like do anything.
Right.
Right? Like YouTube is not your one-stop shop. I think it's
a superficial kind of change.
Yeah, I think they're doing that so that you can avoid copyright and like loss of ad revenue due to copyright.
So I do want to point out that these moths, and they're not moths yet, they're the caterpillars, have been kind of time consuming because what I've had to do is set up stuff around the trees to try to trap them from getting back up to the leaves.
Yeah.
And then I've been spending every morning and every evening stomping on them on the trunk whenever I see them. And it's a losing battle because the amount of poop that gets dumped by these caterpillars is huge.
It's massive, yeah.
It forms like a slick kind of sludge on the driveway when it rains. It's these little... It's almost like these little extruded pellets, like the old Play-Doh where you'd squeeze it out and have patterns.
They're in like a flower shape.
Yeah.
They have flower-shaped poops, yeah. And to anybody who hears the stomping and thinks that sounds cruel, well, I mean, I guess it depends on what your perspective on insects and animals are. Maybe it is just cruel sort of unilaterally, regardless of the context. But the context is that they're invasive and
they're denuding our trees out front. And trees can only survive a certain number of times where you take away their ability to make food for themselves. So they eat all the leaves, they make new ones, and then next year the cycle repeats itself. And that's a huge metabolic cost to the tree. Yeah,
so they grow in massive numbers and they choke out wildlife. And obviously they're eating up other insects' source of food. So, and there's so many of them that taking matters into our own hands is not making sort of like a meaningful dent to the population, but it's a collective action problem. And so pretty much everybody's out there squashing caterpillars.
And they're nasty. Right now. They come out and the gush out as either like a bright green or a dark reddish brown.
Well, even separate from the killing of them, there's something on them.
It gives you
causes, allergic reactions.
Yeah.
It makes you rash up, or maybe not allergic, I guess, if it does it to everybody.
And it might be, so it's maybe like a contact dermatitis, and definitely like they have these spikes.
Yeah.
I wonder if part of it is because the spikes can actually break your skin if you just do it enough.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
So they're everywhere. You can't touch them. They turn into moths that fly around indiscriminately. And from past experience, they'll just fling themselves straight into your face because they're I think meant to pretty much just breed and then die.
Yes.
They're one of those animals that doesn't have much in terms of like a rich daily schedule. Right. They're not like squirrels where they're like hiding food and burying it and then making plans for the winter and then like getting their stuff set up. They pretty much just show up, make more and make as many more as they can and then get out. So they don't have a lot going on behind the eyes.
Defoliating our trees in the process.
Yeah. And so it's brutal, and there's videos of like trees where they're like, it looks like the tree is black, and then you get close and it's just like a thick, like teeming layer of these caterpillars. So they're really nasty.
Yeah.
So that's what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah. Oh, we have questions.
Yeah. So our first question comes from Sinemac, And they say, this is our newest patron, and they're making good use of the message function on Patreon.
Yeah, this was not like we usually pull a question from comments in our YouTube video. This was directly to us.
Mm-hmm. And they say, what updated gear would you guys recommend for survival ever since newer gears have released? And this is, in reference to the fact that we have a Survivor video, right, that includes gear recommendations, but that video is out of date at this point for
Is it though?
For the gear. I think it is. I think there's new stuff.
Is there enough new stuff that makes... All right, so I guess what's interesting about these questions to me always is the kind of assumptions that are embedded in it that might not be obvious to you if you don't give it too much thought. So the assumption is that we know how far you want to get. Because the video that we did, I should probably remember at some point to link that. We've done how to beat Survivor video. It was back when it was only 16 fights. I think it's 20 fights now. Yeah. And it took, I want to say 45 minutes to finish it. And which is all right. But if you're going to be farming Survivor, and you can farm Survivor because you can reset it, and that leads to another question of whether you should farm Survivor or not, considering where you are in the game. But if you do farm Survivor, you actually don't want to finish the fight because the later fights take so long. So what you're looking at is probably the optimal number to aim for. If you can finish fast enough, each run is maybe like 9 or 10 fights. Yeah. 9 because I think it's every 3 fights that you get a spin on the wheel. Mm-hmm. Not spin. Sorry. Not, am I getting myself? No,
ticket.
A ticket. Sorry, is every time you get a ticket, not the spin on wheel. You spin on a wheel every time.
Mm-hmm. You get a spin on the. I don't even know what the Joker grid.
Yeah. For each last ticket, and you get a spin on the wheel for. Anyways, it's all a bit of blur. But what you don't want to do is strive for getting too far in each fight, unless that's what you want. Like at one point, we just decided, we want to just show that we can and finish Survivor, so it was worth it. Yeah. But for the time it would take to get it right and film it, we just don't have the time for that now, and I'm not sure I'm entirely motivated. And for the strategies that we've got, I don't think it has to change that much. So I guess there's general principles, right? So early on, your stats are going to be matched decently against your opponents. And then they start scaling up really fast in later fights. So if you're talking about the later fights too, then what you want to have is scaled up damage, which is basically all damage over time is scaled up damage because it's a percentage of your opponent. Mm-hmm. So that lets you beat stronger opponents. Yeah. I think Soul Taker Sword is really important at the much later fights because the 15% damage drain from the defeated enemies can really add up. And even though ultimately, even after 2 fights, you're only going to be getting 30% of a damage boost, it's 30% of their damage boost, which can be kind of spectacular. Yeah. Kind of necessary for dealing any type of damage other than damage over time. Yeah. And the other principle, I guess, is if you want to maximize the damage that you can do, and it's related to being able to do damage over time, you want power. And so, in order to maximize damage, you need Tantu Totem and Master's Death Card. And I think if it wasn't already available when we did our original video of beating Survivor, it must have been pretty close. So I don't feel like it's changed much. And so the problem with the later fights is not only do they have so much more health, sometimes you actually have to deal with hazards that actually matter. Like some hazards, do I really care? So if there's no healing, there's radiation damage, it makes a little bit of difference because then you're weaker for the next fight, but then you can always just spend a few credits and heal yourself, right? Yeah. The real difficult, the 100% absolute worst hazard to me is random tag in. Very few teams do not involve strategically moving a character in and out when you need to. Yeah. And when that's taken away from you, I think you're a little bit screwed. Even something as basic as Tantu Totem, where a big part of the ability is tagging in exactly when you want right at the beginning. Yeah. Get your power and lay the beats on your opponent. And there's other things that are tough. Like if Special 1 or Special 2 is disabled, that can be tough especially if you haven't planned for it. So part of playing further along in Survivor is knowing or just keeping track of a list of what the hazards are going to be in your next fight, which is a huge time commitment. And I think if you don't want to do that, 9 or 10 fights, you can do it pretty mindlessly, get really far.
Yeah. Use
your bronze team, a really good bronze team like we did in our Survivor Tips videos. That gets you, if you can get through 7 fights with that, the 8th fight you lose and then swap out, after you've already lost, swap out for silver because the characters will be locked in. And then that'll get you through the 8th. And then swap out for a gold team after your silver loses because the damage is scaled up but not high enough to be gold. And then your gold team can do it. Yeah. And then maybe you can win another fight if your gold team is good enough. Yeah. I mean, it really comes down to, do you have a decent strategy for a team? Do they do enough different things together that they're pretty complete, they can handle whatever the opponent's throw at you? And it's probably more important to just have really maxed out gears for what you want to do, which is not necessarily specials. That's where the team composition matters the most, because you can't have everybody being a specialist, although that would probably work the best. You do need a good basic damage dealer, and there are going to be times where you will want to have a tank just to wait out whatever you're facing. Honestly, I feel like it hasn't changed that much, and the overall strategy, and I think a big part of it is it's only changed if you want to finish the fight. Yeah. Because then you'll want to maybe take advantage of some of the newer characters and be able to be completely immune to any kind of basic damage. Yeah. But I don't think there's much. I'll tell you what. Like, if there was no tag-in and no disabled specials, you could totally ride that Aquaman Atlantean hero fight to just swap in and out until you eventually bleed them to death. Yeah, if it weren't for the random effects, there would be ways to make it impossible to lose, even if it wasn't that much fun to win. Yeah. One thing that I will say is interesting, because thinking about the actual way that the rewards, when you were talking about the wheels and this things, is that I haven't engaged with it as, like, Survivor, as like an aesthetic in a long time. I've looked at it sort of as a place for, like, grinding, and it's become very rote. But I think they actually do a pretty good job theming it, right? With the lights and everything, and then the random effects, and then the just gauntlet of getting increasingly hard. It is, like, in a real fun sort of way, that, like, Joker Funhouse, like slog through an unwinnable tournament vibe. And I think for earlier players, they probably get there's some appreciation and joy for that sort of effort into the vibe that I haven't actually experienced for a while. But thinking about, like, the way that the big Joker head's there and, like, it goes random and stuff, I'm like, you know what, that actually is pretty fun. Right? Because not a lot of the rest of the game, even when there's, like, random rewards, right? Yeah. Has the same, like, rundown carnival or casino energy to it, right? They have it sort of like nice clean packs, and you open it up and there's cards that you flip around and you're like, ooh, what'd I get, right? But then when you play Survivor, it really is that, like, carnival huckster energy. And I think it's cool. Every once in a while I have these moments, because we still play it a lot. I have these moments where I think, man, this is a really good game. This is held up, like, incredibly well, considering, I mean, what are we looking at now? Has it been 8 years? Oh, I don't know. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. Oh. But 2013, right? I guess so. So it's actually really... I mean, I'm sure some of it was designed, and we got to give them credit for that, but I think a lot of it would have been stuff that they couldn't have necessarily predicted how it would turn out, because sometimes you just try it, right? And that's the whole idea behind why some games you have to nerf or boost to rebalance stuff, right? Yeah. If every game could just be good by dint of having people with enough talent put enough time and effort into it, then, you know, there would be no, like, bad video game releases. Yep. After some, there'd be no, like, popular, like, big name, high budget, like, bad video game releases, because they would just
they would just put the people with the minimum amount of talent behind it, and then give them enough time to make it good. And then every game ever released by any big studio would just be good.
Yes.
So, there's always a little bit of sort of luck for stuff like this. And you can even tell, and there are other versions of this same game, essentially, right?
Yeah.
WWE Immortals, Mortal Kombat X, right?
Yeah.
Even Injustice 2, although I guess different people might have different feelings about the game Injustice 2. But that it's easy to do something very similar and make it not good. That Batman game that I played very briefly that sucked. It was just not good. It was good. I don't know if you remember that. I don't think you ever played it. I think it was like Batman Arkham Origins or something.
Okay, yeah, okay. I did not.
And the first mistake was that the only person you could play as was Batman. So there was exactly one character, and you could just put different suits on him. And so the energy pool was just one energy pool for Batman. And like a lot of the people that you're beating up were just like random thugs because it was a Batman game. Right. And so I think there was like other people to beat up that were like fun, but it would just be like Batman. And it's just one guy versus like 7. Like you'd have a fight and it was like Batman versus 7 thugs. Yeah. And it just wasn't that good. Because, you don't... It would be like this game if they took out everybody who wasn't Batman and made the people that you were playing against like nobody.
So basically you remove a big part, like half the game, the collectability part of it, where you're actually collecting characters.
Yeah. Well, you were collecting outfits still.
Yeah, but
I don't remember if there's gear. I don't think there was.
There's a limit to how much you can enjoy. Like here, what people are looking forward to with updates is new characters.
Yeah.
New gears. And it's just that level below new characters where you're just changing outfits.
Yeah, it was new Batman paint job. Like we just watched Catwoman fight the Flash, and both of those are like recognizable quantities, and I don't want to watch Batman fight like bald skinhead. Like,
ooh, Catwoman, that's a good.
There you go. We just got Catwoman.
Yeah,
speak the devil. Anyways, our next set of comments comes from Jeremy Frey and then John Doe. So Jeremy Frey says, are the online battles the only way to acquire high tier gear other than the gear sets in Survivor? And then John Doe says, no, you can get them from the 400 Nth Metal packs.
Yeah, and so there's the literal question, and then there's the takeoff point. So high tier gears are, if we're talking about straight gear tier, like how it ranks in the game,
4-star that become 5-star,
4.5-star gears. Mm-hmm. And the only places you can get them are MP Online. There's a bunch of good ones. There's one 4.5-star gear in the gear locker, which is Razagul's scimitar, which is what it evolves into. I think it starts off as Razagul's dagger.
Yeah, something.
Survivor, yes, and there are packs. 400 Nth Metal packs, you can get gears. It's actually a better proposition to get the higher 4.5-star gears from the 800th Nth Metal, not the Pro Pack, but the Ultimate.
I don't remember the naming.
I don't remember the naming. Yeah, just how much it costs.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's paid packs where you can get really good gears. But the interesting thing is it presumes that those are the best gears.
Yeah.
There are actually some gears, depending on how you want to load out your team. Here's the thing. Unless you have Tantu Totem and Master's Death card, it changes the complexion of what's a good gear. The basic attack gears are 3.5 stars, the best ones, and you could load up a team when you can't rely on power generation and specials. You load up a team on basic damage dealers, maybe some, maybe a tank, maybe, and have a really effective team. It won't be as fast as a team where you can exploit the specials, but it's going to be effective.
Yeah. And I think what the funny thing about it too is that you say, the way question is, are the online battles the only way to acquire high tier gear other than the gear sets in Survivor? You almost can't think of them like tiers, right? Because, the stars do matter some, but their pools are almost entirely separate, right? It's the way that we think about challenge characters versus online exclusives versus like pack characters, like gold pack characters versus, there's then the rare ones that are only in the pack, and then the ones that you can get in the store, where, they're all gold characters, but the pools don't have a lot of overlap. There's mostly like one place that you can get them in, and then sometimes, or I guess a lot of the times, there's other places that you can get lucky and get them in by chance. Right? So with the gear, it's the same thing. the gear sets in Survivor are different from the gear sets that you get from online, which are different from the gear set you can get in the pack, right?
Right.
And so the fact that they're almost like 3 separate pools, what's more important than the fact that you can theoretically get a gear of a certain star level in a certain, like doing a certain thing, what's a lot more important is looking at which gears you actually want. Because nobody says, nobody's out there saying like, I just want any 4.5 star gear. Right. They're all equally good to me, right? You mostly say, I want Tantu Totem, or I want these like Survivor gear. I want
League
this
of
gear
Assassins
set.
knives.
Yeah.
You don't want the whole League of Assassins gear set. You just want the knives, and that's the hardest one to get.
Yeah.
That's the chase one.
So, you almost need to take a step back and go, does it matter what the different places I can get gear in are? Or does it matter which gear I'm looking for and where I need to get those specific gear?
Yeah.
And to me, that's why this was an interesting question, is because I would have never thought about it in terms of like, where can you get like the highest star gears? In what places? It's just like, what do I want? Well, I want, this gear, this gear, this gear, right. Or, I would just want shards to upgrade my other gear. And, all of those are different considerations, and all of those ask different things of you.
So our perspective is probably a little bit different too, because when you start playing the game, not all the gears are available, right? They would slowly add more gears. So you accumulate the knowledge instead of having this whole big line. Like, it's got to be overwhelming if you start playing now, where everything is already there, and you may not even know gear exists, because, let's face it, there's so many gears, and you're just noticing the effects that your opponents have on you when you're in multiplayer.
Yeah.
And that's how you figure it out. So you might not, like, when League of Assassin's Knives came out, we knew before it was even released, with the update that it had, before you could get it, we knew what it was going to be, and we thought, this is going to be amazing on Batgirl. And it was. And that's why we were so desperate to get it. But then we knew, because it was just the one gear, we got to be in Survivor. We got to be spending our tickets. We got to be hoping that we're lucky, or using the refund glitch over and over.
It's true. That's one of the things that a lot of games do in like tutorials, or like as you play, which is that as you play them, they introduce new mechanics, they introduce new layers to you, so that you never have to deal with too many things all at once. And that's one of the things that Injustice did, if you stuck with it, but does not do for a new player. Because when we stuck with it, we were essentially getting like layers of tutorials. And when they introduced gear, it was overwhelming when they first introduced gear, because there were so many. And I was like talking with friends about like what gear they got, and I was thinking about it, and then I was looking at stuff, and I'm like, this is the extra ability that this has. When it's maxed out, I'm going to be able to do this. And when this is maxed out, I'm going to be able to do this. And at the time, the only thing that I was looking at was the fact that they had introduced Shazam in the gold packs.
Right.
So gold packs for Shazam.
Yeah.
Gear from the gear lockers. Right. Yeah. And then there was new challenge characters, but those were only, one at a time. I didn't really need to think about that. And then every time there was a challenge character, it was like a month.
Yeah.
And so for a new player, they've got like 1 million characters in the gold pack.
Yeah.
And then there's rotating challenge packs for characters, and you're like, well, when am I even going to get the opportunity to play the actual challenge? I don't know. And the challenge itself rotates every week. So, you start playing and you see a challenge that you're not going to be able to complete, and then you go, when's this going to come back? I don't know, a year from now? Really? Yeah. Right? Yeah. And there's just so many things to do, because, back when the challenges were like a month, if you started playing not too far into the season, from the first day you started playing, if you played a good amount, it was hard, but you could get to a point where you could beat the challenge that was already in when you started playing. Yeah, right? Yeah. Now when you only have a week, there's no way.
Yeah.
You're going to see a couple challenges before you have a chance to beat it. And, for the... if it entices you by the fact that it's going away, you're going to spend a lot of time playing in challenges and getting the piddly rewards and sort of wasting your time a little bit. Yeah. It's a very different game to start again now than it is to have played it from... before a lot of these mechanics were even in the game. Yeah. There weren't game modes, right? Like we played a lot before there was online.
There's story mode. There was story mode, and that was it.
Yeah. So it's it's been an interesting journey with it. Mm-hmm. So anyways, our next comment comes from Mark Yap, and they say, any tips on how to earn more Nth Metal faster?
Again, this is another one of those questions that has an assumption buried. Answering that question literally is, in my mind, grinding Phantom Zone is the best. Phantom Zone, we know we can reset it.
Yeah.
Phantom Zone's got overall probably the best way to get the rewards, because instead of a random chance where in, say, online, there's diminishing returns, right? You need to keep on playing in your rank, and depending on where you are, you can get pushed down, right? Like you'll have to play a lot just to maintain your rank. In Survivor, random, right? There's a good chance if you get bad spins, you're not going to get any Nth Metal. Yeah. Or maybe not a lot. So Phantom Zone, you're guaranteed Nth Metal when you finish a crystal. You can replay it over as many times as you want. The problem is, it could suck up all your time. It's actually good, I think, that it's only available for 2 weeks on and then 2 weeks off. Yeah. And actually, Valorium Alloy is more important because that's the only thing there that you can't get anywhere else. But to me, that's a later stage kind of thing. For the time that you put in Survivor and your ability to, for the time you put in Phantom Zone and your ability to make progress, it's actually counterproductive. You could try to do that, but the value of Nth Metal really early on in the game isn't even that great. And what you really want to do is develop more of a collection that lets you do the other things faster, get more power credits, get more gears, get more shards. And I guess if you buy Nth Metal packs, it can help. But the cost of it early on is so tough, is so high, that it might pay off in the short term, but in the long term, you're actually, I think, gonna limit your progress if you don't really have a sense of where to get Nth Metal the fastest. Then probably the last thing you should do is actually be playing where you can get Nth Metal the fastest. Yeah.
In the long term, if you already have the team, you grind quickly. And if you don't have a good team for grinding, the way you get the Nth Metal fastest is figuring out what team you need and then building that team first, actually, before going for the Nth Metal. And it's true, because, the metal characters take so long, take such an investment of resources, that you are going to have a much easier time pouring resources into pretty much anybody else that you can unlock in the store before it makes sense to pour your effort into metal characters. So the real basic answer to your question is just, playing Phantom Zone and only playing Phantom Zone, and refreshing it whenever it's around, and then playing Survivor when it's not around, if you just want to get Nth Metal the fastest. But it's not that simple. Yeah. So there we go. Our next question comes from Shawn RB Perfect Pattern, and they say, how do you switch out gear when playing online matches?
So that's a reference to an older video where we used to do it more. That was before we settled on this. Pretty much, to me, this is the platonic ideal of a Phantom Zone team with the perfect gear loadout. It doesn't need any changing. You get through it really fast, and you can do all the tasks that are worth doing.
Yeah, because part of an efficient grind is spending as little time thinking or doing other things. And so swapping out gear takes time. Yeah. And if you're doing it, it's not a good grinding team if you need to swap gear.
Yeah. So the easy part is, I thought it would have been obvious because the video shows the touches, but in between fights, you see who your opponents are. You decide whether your loadout is actually any good, and if you want to change anything, just touch the number of power credits that you've got in the bottom right corner, and then takes you to the store where you can buy power credits, but then use one of the tabs at the top to switch away from the store to your collection, go to the character that's on your team, and then switch out the gears. And that changes the gears that you actually have on your team. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. Now, just one thing to be careful about is sometimes it'll cause it to crash. Like in the middle of it, when you come back to the fight, sometimes none of the touches actually work anymore. It rarely happens, but if you've got the wrong kind of team, it's totally worth it just to change the setup, because otherwise you're going to be at a big disadvantage if you've got the wrong team.
Yeah, so only do it if you need to, basically, because you might lose your finishing bonus. Yeah. And a little bit of energy.
Yep. And that's the last question for this week. Yeah, just a reminder, if you have questions, leave them in the comments, And we always look through the comments, even if we don't always reply, and that's where we pull this stuff.
And if you have money, support us on Patreon.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
No, just kidding. You can have money and still not support us on Patreon. If you have money and you really like our content, and you think you have gotten value from us, you can provide value to us. To a level that you think is appropriate.
Yeah.
Or not. Even if you think you've gotten good value from this, we also, it's YouTube. We give it away for free. So you don't need to. But...
Like a cow.
Yeah.
So I had some ideas that have been sort of bouncing around my head for a while, for little moments when we'd run out of questions and stuff. And one thing that occurred to me is, I'm looking at this monitor. I decided, because I'm working from home lately, that I would change the setup so that it would be more productive and more comfortable. And I'm really liking this monitor that I can change from landscape to portrait. It makes the kind of work I'm doing a lot easier.
Yeah.
New keyboard where I stuck O-rings to soften it. So now, even when we're filming, if I needed to type something, I could
it's quieter. Slowly,
but just do it. Yeah, real quiet.
Yeah.
And to me, it's this huge shift in my life it's weird, because instead of just valuing having more things, because I think when I was younger, it mattered more to have more things.
Yeah.
That now I think I don't even care, as long as the one thing is good enough and does the job it needs to.
Things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing about the keyboard, it's not super premium. But it's got some features. The bad feature that it has is that it's rainbow on the bottom and that you can't turn it off.
Yeah.
But the good feature that it has is it has RGB underlighting, so that you've customized it.
Yeah.
So that, the
home keys are white, the other keys are red with some function keys that are yellow.
Yeah. So that it's really easy for you to orient yourself to your keyboard and know exactly what does what and where stuff is, even just by... even if you can't actually see the tops of the keys, just by the sort of light coming from them.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting, too, is it came to the realization that it's harder to appreciate some of these things without having suffered without it for a while first.
Yeah.
And what's neat is, it reminded me of a Terry Pratchett quote. And I like Terry Pratchett. I should probably be reading him more. I never got around to it, but there's a thing where he's really known for this, the Captain Samuel Vimes Boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness. I'll just read a quick clip. Take Boots, for example. So the reason that the rich were so rich, Vimes reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take Boots, for example. He earned $38 a month plus allowances. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50. But an affordable pair of boots, which were sort of okay for a season or two and then leaked like hell when the cardboard gave out, cost about $10. Those were the kind of boots Vimes always bought and wore until the soles were so thin that he could tell when he was in Ankh-Morpork on a foggy night by the feel of the cobbles. But the thing was that good boots lasted for years and years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that would still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while the poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. That's a good point. It's true.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you put this on, and what it reminded me of is I have a friend who recently just upgraded, where their old style, they upgraded bikes, and they went from buying a bike from a random dude on the street for €50 and then hoping it would last a year, to buying a bike that cost them about $1,000 US.
Yeah.
And it's very much the same thing, right? Where, it's not, I don't think it's that they couldn't afford a more expensive than €50 bike before, but it was just that, if you have a better bike, it's more functional, it's better for you. And it will last you a lot longer. Instead of spending €50 over and over again on a failing bike that you have to repair, you can spend more once. And it reminds me of the Bader-Meinhof effect, which is the first time you hear about something, suddenly seeing it everywhere where you didn't see it anywhere before.
Yeah.
And this is that, right? Where you mentioned this and I'm like, oh, this just came up. This is just relevant for me. And that's just the way that your brain works for seeing coincidences. So I just thought it was fun.
That's cool.
But we are almost out of time here. We've got some stuff, some people to say some words to at the end here. First off, a quick shout out to Eliza Arcade Ticket Caton. Her job lets her bosses give her kudos, which she can redeem for prizes like it's a Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh my God.
So this shout out was brought to you by the fact that there's actually some pretty cool prizes. She was sending me screenshots. There's like one of those backpacks with a clear dome that you can carry pets around in.
Yeah.
There was like a rocket ship themed, like pet, like hidey hole. She was showing me the pet ones because she was offering to get something for our cat.
Oh, wow.
And there was one that's like a flower themed fountain that like is constantly like refreshing water.
Right.
And she can afford all of those, like not all of them together, but like any one of them with stuff left over just from, having worked there for like a couple months. And her boss has never used them before and was showing Eliza how it worked. And it turns out that Eliza has like 70 something and her boss has like 1800.
Oh, wow.
And her boss can get like a limited edition like Fender guitar or like a grill.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so it's like the grown-up version of a Chuck E. Cheese counter. And there's actually some cool stuff.
Remember the kid version? Do you remember that time we went to Niagara Falls? We played the game that would maximize our tickets. We figured out all the games we could play and how fast we could get them. We got a ton of tickets. And you spent all those tickets buying it. You didn't care what it was, but you tried to see what you guys could afford and tried to clean out the one category so that you would have all of them from behind the counter.
We had like 30 emoji slinkies. And then those
hand clappers.
Yeah, the little hand clappers that are just tied on with rubber bands. We had like a ton of small ones and then a couple of big ones. And I duct tape a bunch of the big ones to a yardstick so I could just wave it up and down and make just the worst noise, like the worst amount of noise with them. And then I also had one where I took a big hand clapper and I rubber banded a small hand clapper on each of the fingers of the big hand clappers.
That was a lot of joy for all because those tickets you usually can't get very much.
Oh yeah, well, we got like probably like 15 cents worth of merchandise. It was all just terrible plastic, but there was a lot of joy associated with it.
Yeah, I miss Niagara Falls.
Yeah. Apparently that spirit's still alive and well in an unnamed pharmaceutical company.
That's cool.
Still not gonna dox Eliza. Yeah. But this shout out was brought to you by... Oh no, I already said what it was brought to you by. Yeah. Never mind. We'd also like to give a huge thank you to all the lovely folks who support us on Patreon.
And that would be Consul Peasant and Edwoon at the top tier last word, Sinemac and Mohammed Albshaiti at the Your Message Here tier, Shawn Farrell, Daniel Simonson, Aaron Maule, Michael DeVries, Brandon C., Irvin Ruiz, and Eddydoo supporting us on the credited level, and Chris Wolf, Scarlet Danny, Awesome Gamer 241, Pavu RS, Gavin Malott, and Isfar E. at the gratitude level.
Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you next time.
Komoda.